Haven of Rest Missionary Baptist Church Sunday School Lesson number 8, Sunday, October 23rd, 2016. The lesson is entitled The High Priest Forever. The lesson comes from Hebrews chapter 7, verses 1 through 3, 19 through 28. We were asked to read Hebrews chapter 7, verses 1 through 28. The place is unknown. The time is about 67 AD. The book of Hebrews is full of rich salvation truths. In the last lesson, we noted Christ's absolute sinlessness, which qualified him to bear our sin for us. In this week's text, we focus on Christ's eternity, which also is significant for our salvation. We have a guarantee of our salvation because he ever liveth to make intercession for us. Hebrews 7:25. Because he lives forever, we are saved forever. Through this study, you can help your adults grow in their confidence of salvation's reality. Today's aim, facts, to understand that Christ is eternal and serves as our great high priest forever. Principle, to understand the relationship between Christ's eternity and our salvation. Application, to grow in confidence in the security of our salvation. Illustrating the lesson. Christ lives forever, and therefore we are saved forever. The golden text reads, "But this man, because he continueth ever, have an unchangeable priesthood, wherefore he is able also to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him." Hebrews 7:24 through 25. Today we have two lesson outlines. The Greatness of Melchisedec, Hebrews 7, 1 through 3. And the second is the Greatness of Christ's priesthood, Hebrews 7, 19 through 28. Introduction. We use the term great to signify persons who are far above the average in ability, quality, reputation, or achievement. Thus, greatness speaks of the importance, prominence, prestige, or renown we assign to individuals. To be sure, in the world of greatness is a relative matter assigned according to the values of the majority. So, while some people might ascribe greatness to a king, president, or former, others may deem them persons unworthy of that same honor. Greatness is also a matter of degree. Some, though worthy of renown, are eclipsed by the greatness of others. A baseball player who wins a batting title in college does not measure up to one who does so in the major leagues. A city mayor is not usually thought to be experienced enough to run for president. Jesus alluded to this degree of rank in his emmatic statement about John the Baptist. He said that among those born of women, none was greater than John, yet one who is least in the kingdom is greater than he. Matt 11:11. The Greatness of Melchisedec, Hebrews 7:1. For this Melchisedec, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. Verse 2. To whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after that also king of Salem, which is king of peace. Verse 3. Without father, without mother, without descendant, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth a priest continually. His historical role, Hebrews 7, 1 through 2. The author previously asserted that Christ's priesthood is like that of Melchizedek, chapter 6, verse 20. Now he began to give the peculiars of this likeness, first by examining the historical place of Melchizedek. Who was this man, and what was he remembered? Melchizedek is here called King of Salem, priest of the Most High God, Hebrews 7:1. This description comes from the one historical reference to him in Genesis 4:18 through 20. A confederation of eastern kings had plundered Sodom and Gomorrah and taken captives, including Lot, Abraham's nephew. Hearing of this, Abraham, at the time called Abram, mobilized his servants, pursued the invaders, and defeated them. He rescued the captives, recovered the goods, and returned to Canaan, verses 10 through 16. As Abram returned, he was met by the king of Sodom, Genesis 14:17, and by Melchizedek, described as King of Salem, verse 18. Salem is usually taken as another name for Jerusalem, Psalm 76:2. Though the writer of Hebrews seems not to have been too concerned about the exact location, Melchizedek was also the priest of the Most High God, Hebrews 7:1. Thus he combined the two offices of king and priest, a practice not uncommon in ancient times, though God later forbade it for Israel. Although pagans sometimes referred to their gods as Most High, the fact that Abraham used this title for Yahweh, Genesis 14:22, Deuteronomy 32:8, makes it almost certain that Melchizedek was a worshiper of Yahweh. The major emphasis in Hebrews 7:1 is that Melchizedek blessed Abraham. This implies that he was superior to him, since the less is blessed of the better, verse 7. Furthermore, Abraham gave the eminent king priest a tithe, a tenth of all the spoils of battle. This shows that not only did Melchizedek claim superiority, but also that Abraham recognized it as legitimate. Melchizedek's greatness is also established by his name and title. Melchizedek is, by interpretation, king of righteousness, Hebrews 7:2. This is the actual meaning of his name. In addition, king of Salem means king of peace, for Salem is merely a variation of the Hebrew word shalom. These facts symbolize the nature of Christ, who combines these two virtues in his person and rule. Isaiah 9:6, 7, 11:4, and 9, Ephesians 2:14. His distinctiveness, Hebrews 7:3. The author of Hebrews astonishes us with the further declaration that Melchizedek was without father, without mother, without descendant, having neither beginning of days nor end of life. What does this mean? Was he an early appearance of Christ? Was he an angel? Most likely the author meant that as far as the written record was concerned, he had none of these things. He was fully human, but scripture is silent about any of his ancestors or descendants. The silence in Genesis was designed by God so that this man might be a picture of Christ's priesthood. Made like unto the Son of God, he abideth a priest continuously. Hebrews 7:3. The lineal descent of Levitical priests was of prime innocence, of prime importance, and those who lacked proof of it were barred from the priesthood. Ezra 2:62 through 63. But Christ has a unique priesthood, and the record of Melchizedek was designed to typify this uniqueness. Based on the information in Genesis record, Melchizedek remains a priest perpetually forever. His priesthood is timeless because no predecessor or successor is indicated. In this, he bears resemblance to the Son of God, the Eternal One. He pictures the eternal priesthood of Christ, distant from the succession of priests from Aaron. The greatness of Christ's priesthood, verse 19. For the law made nothing perfect, but the beginning in of a better hope did, by the which we draw nigh unto God. Verse 20. And insomuch as not without an oath he was made priest, 21. But those priests were made without an oath, but this with an oath by him that said unto him, The Lord swear and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever, after the order of Melchisedec. Verse 22. By so much was Jesus made a surety of a better testament. Verse 23. And they truly were many priests, because they were not suffered to continue by reason of death. Verse 24. But this man, because he continueth ever, have an unchangeable priesthood. 25. Wherefore he is able also to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them. Verse 26. For such an high priest became us, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, and made high than the heavens. 27. Who needeth not daily, as those high priests, to offer up sacrifice for his own sins, and then for the people's. For this he did once, when he offered up himself. Verse 28. For the law maketh man high priest which have infirmity, but the word of the oath, which was since the law, maketh the Son, who is consecrated forevermore, surpassing the value of the law. Hebrews 7:19. In the verses between the first and second segments of our lesson, the author continued to argue for the superiority of Melchizedek priesthood, declaring his preeminence over Abraham in the receiving of his tenth and the bestowing of blessing. And since Abraham was the ancestor of Levi and his priestly descendants, these actions made Melchizedek superior to them as well. Verses 4 through 10. The writer argued further that the Aaronic priesthood and the law it administered were unable to bring perfection, and that this was why a priest of Melchizedek's type was needed to replace them. Hebrews 7:11 through 12. Jesus fulfilled this need, annulling the law in the process, since he came from the royal tribe of Judah, not the priestly tribe of Levi, he qualifies for the priesthood not because of fleshly succession, but because of his indestructible life. Verses 13 through 17. The law had to be set aside because of the weaknesses and unprofitableness thereof. Hebrews 7:18. While it fulfilled its purpose of revealing and restraining sin, it made nothing perfect. Verse 19. It could not make people righteous, but Christ has brought us into a better hope, through which we can draw near to God. Through him comes the perfection that eluded the priestly efforts under the law, established by another oath. Hebrews 7:20 through 22. Another argument for the superiority of Christ's priesthood over Aaron's is that Jesus was installed with an oath, whereas the Aaronic priests were installed without an oath. The importance of a divine oath in making something secure was already emphasized in chapter 6 in relation to God's promises to Abraham, verses 13 through 18. Here the oath establishes the certainty of Christ's priesthood. The oath referred to is found in Psalms 110:4, and it is quoted in Hebrews 7:21. The Lord swear and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. Christ's eternal priesthood is thus guaranteed by the changeless nature of God, whereas the Levitical order was dependent on the duration of the law because of the law's weakness and preparatory nature. Genesis 3:21 through 25. It ended, and with it the Levitical priesthood, but God's oath stands forever. Thus, by so much was Jesus made a surety of a better testament, covenant. Hebrews 7:22. This verse is remarkable in several ways. First, the name Jesus is used the first time since 620, stressing the human nature of God's sworn high priest, And in the Greek sentence, Jesus stands at the end, the place of emphasis. The author wanted to stress that it is as the perfect representative of humanity that he fulfills his role. 2:17. Second, Hebrews 7:22 declared Jesus to be a surety. This term, occurring only here in the New Testament, refers to a guarantee or a pledge. Jesus guarantees to us that God will keep his promise of forgiveness. He also guarantees to his Father that those who have trusted him are acceptable in the divine presence. Third, what Jesus guarantees is a better covenant. The Greek term here is sometimes used to speak of a will that goes into effect when its maker dies. But since God does not die, it refers throughout Hebrews to a declaration of his will in regard to his dealing with mankind. He has initiated an agreement that we may approach him through Jesus, and Jesus himself is the pledge that it will be honored. Having an eternal priesthood, having an eternal high priest, Hebrews 7:23 through 25. Christ's high priesthood is superior not only because it has been established by an oath, but also because it is eternal. The author again contrasted it with the priesthood of Aaron, which had many priests because they were not suffered to continue by reason of death. The Jewish historian Josephus listed 83 high priests up to his time. Even if that precise number cannot be verified, it illustrates the point that there were many because they all died. Such is not the case with Jesus Christ, who, because he lives forever, has an unchangeable priesthood. Hebrews 7:24. Unchangeable is a word that occurs only here in the New Testament. It indicates something that cannot be transgressed, invaded, or violated. It is permanent and does not change. Although the Old Testament high priesthood was a lasting institution spanning many generations, it was subject to the intrusion of many emphases and differing levels of worth through the succession of high priests. But this will never happen with Christ's high priesthood because it has no succession. He continues forever. His priesthood will never be invaded by anything foreign to his holy nature. But did not Jesus also die? Yes, he did. But his death was temporary, soon eclipsed by his resurrection. Acts 2:23-24. Furthermore, his substitutionary death was the necessary basis for his intercessory work as priest. Hebrews 9:11-15. Having endured it, he sat down at his Father's right hand, 12:2, never to relinquish his position. Does it make a difference that we have an eternal high priest whose ministry is permanent and inviolable? This answer is seen in Hebrews 7:25. Wherefore he is able to also save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him. The eternal priest provides a complete salvation. Save here occurs in the present tense without modification. He is able to keep saving us from everything that demands rescue, sin's penalty, power, and presence. Romans 5:8-10. His salvation is not only continuous, it is complete to the uttermost. Hebrews 7:25. Though this could though this also could mean forever, the expression more likely means to the utmost extent. Christ is able to deliver from whatever evil may assault us, but he does so only for those who come to God through him. He provides access to God, 7:19, 10:19-20, but only those who accept it by faith are saved. He makes no provision for those who seek God another way. Christ is able to save believers completely because he is permanently alive to intercede for them. Through his self sacrifice on the cross, he secured our forgiveness. Through his continuing presence in heaven, he secures our continual enjoyment of God's love and favor. Romans 8:24, 1 John 2:1. Having a perfect high priest. Hebrews 7:26 through 27. The greatness of Christ's high priestly ministry is guaranteed finally by his perfection. For such an high priest became us, can be more precisely translated, for such a high priest was fitting for us. Our sense of suitability tells us we need a high priest who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, and made higher than the heavens. The first three of these characteristics are personal qualities Jesus exhibited. He is holy, that is, upright in character. He is harmless or innocent, lacking in gall. He is undefiled, morally pure. Then come two positional distinctions. The fact that Jesus is separate from sinners implies not just his non participation in their sins, but also his present heavenly position as high priest. His being set above the heavens speaks of his present exaltation as well. Hebrews 4:14, 9:24. These characteristics set Christ apart from the usual Levitical practices. Unlike those high priests, he has no need to offer up daily sacrifices. First for his own sins of which there are none, and then for the sins of the people. Technically, the high priest did not have to offer sacrifices every day. What is described applies specifically to the annual Day of Atonement, chapter 9, verse 7, chapter 10, verse 1. However, they could choose to officiate at other times, and when they themselves sinned, they had to offer an atoning sacrifice. The point here, however, is that Christ did not have to do this. Instead of sacrificing repeatedly, he did it once for all when he offered up himself. Besides, he did not have to sacrifice for his own sins, for he was without sin. When he offered himself for others, he was spotless and blameless. That is why God could accept it. The greatness summarized, Hebrews 7:28. The contrast between Christ and the Levitical priest is now summed up. On one hand, the law maketh men high priests which have infirmity. Since the law made nothing perfect, verse 19, this included the high priest who presided over the sacrificial system. Being taken from among men, then they had human weaknesses, both physical and moral. In contrast to the law, however, was the appointment by oath which came after the law. This was the oath that establishes Jesus' priesthood. Questions. Who was Melchizedek? What is his historical significance? 2. How was Melchizedek shown to be greater than Abraham? 3. On what basis can it be said that Melchizedek had neither beginning nor end of life? 4. Why could Jesus not have been a priest under the law? 5. If the law was given by God, why could it not bring perfection? 6. How does the oath quoted from Psalms 110:4 guarantee the high priesthood of Christ? 7. Why is indicated by word surety? Hebrews 7:22. 8. Why were there many high priests in Aaron's line? Why does Jesus' priesthood differ? 9. What characterizes the salvation Jesus offers? Who is eligible to receive it? 10. Why did Jesus not have to offer sacrifices to God repeatedly? This concludes our Sunday School lesson for Sunday, October 23rd, 2016. Thank you for listening. God bless.